Hi everyone, welcome back. So today I am going to talk to you about newsletters. But before we get started, make sure to click that like button down below. It really helps out the channel. And if you end up liking the video, you can subscribe. Alright, let's get started. So I've had my newsletter for I think about almost 2 years now. And I've gotten to learn quite a few things and found some interesting resources on my newsletter, so I wanted to share them with you. Okay, so now we're going to talk about mail providers. First one I'm going to mention is the one I'm using right now, which is SendFox. I think they are working actively to improve it, but they have taken away a couple of features that actually would have been really useful, like the ability to remove all of my inactive contacts in one go. I had to contact customer service to get all of them off, or I would have had to go through and remove them one by one. So certain things that you might take advantage with other carriers, SendFox isn't going to have. If cost is your main concern, then that's probably going to be the one to go with because it's only $50 period. You don't have to pay any sort of monthly fees unless you want to go with like the upper tier option with them. Just be aware, the customer service is a little iffy in some areas. Don't rely too heavily on them, and be prepared to have some issues with it because it is a lower cost service if you decide to go with them. But it is definitely the cheapest. It's $50 period, and that's for up to 5,000 contacts. It also has a double opt-in, and the sends per month is unlimited, which I don't think you get with Mailchimp, unfortunately. So that's pretty good. And then if you need more contacts, like beyond the 5,000, you can get another 5,000 contacts for about $50. So you can just kind of keep going up with those contacts. So that's the one that I've chosen to use, but just keep in mind you're getting what you pay for. I can't attach documents. You can still segment and have separate lists and things like that. You can still do automations, but that's pretty much it. And you can still do links, but you can't do a lot of other things that you would be able to do with MailChimp and MailerLite. So it's very basic. If you're only sending like a very essentials kind of newsletter with stories and information and maybe the occasional reader magnet, then it's probably fine. But if you're trying to do something that's more complex, SendFox might not be the one for you. The next step that I would go above that's highly recommended, but I have not used it personally, would be MailerLite. It's a step below Mailchimp, but it still has a lot of different features that SendFox doesn't. And it's still fairly inexpensive. So if you're just starting out and want the newsletter for free, it's free up to 1,000 subscribers if you're sending less than 12,000 emails a month. If you're sending more than that, then it's $10 a month. So they do monthly, unlike SendFox, which is a one-time payment. And if you look at some of the features they have, there's some video tutorials. They have chat support and email support, which is good. They also have the built-in photo editors, which I've seen on SendFox as well. But they have file managers, which I don't really see for SendFox. They have a couple other things. A custom domain, it says something about a custom domain. I don't really know a ton about MailerLite, so I don't want to say too much about them. Just keep in mind that they do have more features. You can kind of look through a list of them when you go and see the prices. You can click to see more information, and you'll be able to see all of the different things that they have available to you. Last one I want to talk about is Mailchimp. This is by far the most expensive, and the amount that you pay depends on how many contacts you have. So it continues to scale up as you get more and more people on your list. And for an author, I just feel personally like it's not worth the money. If you're doing something where you're making enough money to like justify spending that much on an email service, maybe. But the only reason I would use Mailchimp is for the free version in the beginning. I was originally just gonna say why not and keep it with the essentials plan, but then I saw that as I went into 3,000, 4,000 territory with my newsletter, I would have to pay a lot more money each month, and I just wasn't okay with doing that. Like, to give an example, If you have like 1,000 or so contacts and you do the Essentials plan, which is the lowest one aside from the free, then it's $10 a month. But if you have 10,000 contacts, it goes up to $80 a month, which is a lot of money, especially if you're an author, because we don't make a lot of money. So just something to keep in mind. If you do start with Mailchimp, you're probably going to end up like me and end up transferring to something else later on. But if you want to start with the free Mailchimp plan, it is free up to 2,000 contacts with 10,000 sends a month and a daily limit of 2,000. So if you have automations, that means you're probably going to end up hitting your limit before you hit 2,000 because those automations count towards your 2,000 a day. Next thing I want to talk about is engagement in your newsletter. I'm going to give you a couple of resources that you can check out and then tell you some of the things that I've applied because of that resource. First thing I want to talk about is the resource that I used that has helped me build some engagement with my newsletter. I read Newsletter Ninja. So I'm going to put the link probably in the description down below for you. So that way you can check it out if you want to get the book for yourself. I basically read through it. I didn't read through everything fully. I read through and kind of skimmed the stuff that I thought was going to be important instead of reading everything word for word because I don't really like to read nonfiction. And some of the things that I got out of the book that ended up being helpful for me were to make it very easy to have contacts whitelisted. What that means is in your automations, putting multiple times in your automation sequence how they can add you into contacts. So that way your newsletter isn't going to their spam folder. So that's one thing that ended up really helping me. The other thing that ended up really helping me is it mentions having a question in your newsletter to help build engagement. And I've gotten some really interesting answers to some of the questions. Sometimes I choose more serious topics. Sometimes they're really silly ones, like if you could have a magic power, what would it be? But just things that are very within my genre and within my personality. So whatever your questions end up being might be different for you. But those are some of the main things I ended up taking away from Newsletter Ninja. And if you do end up doing those questions, I usually respond to all of them. Don't worry, you probably aren't going to get overwhelmed with responses. If you do, pick just a couple to respond to personally and don't try to respond to every single one. I usually respond to the first 5 or 6 if I get more than just a handful. But since I don't have a huge amount of people messaging me, it's not really a handful right now. And the third thing I learned was to clear out your list frequently. I'm getting better about this. I'm still pretty bad about clearing out my list. But what I do is with SendFox, because they don't really have the automations that I would use like on Mailchimp, is they mark them as inactive on SendFox if they don't open any emails after a certain point. So what I do is I put those people into their separate segment and I send them 1 or 2 emails letting them know, hey, if you let me know if you want to keep being on my newsletter. If you don't respond to this, I will take you off the email list. And if I see that they haven't opened it, then I just remove them. And I think I ended up removing probably like a few hundred people the first time, and the second time there were less. It was maybe like 80. So I think part of the reason I ended up with a lot of inactive subscribers is when I switched over to SendFox, I didn't think to like tell my newsletter what was going on because it wasn't something I had planned. It was just I ran out of sends and I needed to send an email that week, so I just kind of did it spur of the moment. And I think I lost a lot of subscribers that way, so don't do that. So that pretty much covers it for what I would recommend doing for engagement and my resources for that. And the final thing I want to talk about is, what should you put in your newsletter? That's not always the easiest question. And it's going to depend. It's going to be different for everybody. But make it very clear when people subscribe to your newsletter what they're getting. And then if you want to change something, you really have to like let them know, because that's kind of like your contract with them. So you don't want to break their trust in you by changing things up without warning them or giving them the option to not receive this new thing that you're trying out if they don't like it. So one of the new things that I did that I ended up creating a segment for was the option for people to opt in to find out about my YouTube and to find out about what's going on with my blog, because I have a blog as well. My advice would be make it clear what they're going to get and how often they're going to get it on your landing page. So put bi-weekly, monthly, however many. In my case, I did something that is normally frowned upon, which is I made segments for the bi-weekly, monthly, weekly. I don't recommend doing it. It's kind of a pain in the butt to do the upkeep with, and so few people actually opt in to do it anyway. If you have like a larger newsletter, I would say maybe do it then once you already have a lot of people and once you have a decent amount of engagement. But I think in my case, it just really wasn't worth it. I think I have a total out of like 1,500 people, maybe 20 people are in segments. Probably don't do what I did with the segmenting. However, some of the things I will tell you that I do include in my newsletter that people have liked so far. I recently started doing a story origin thing, like review swaps, and I've been putting that in my ARC reader and reviewer segment. So I have a segment for just people who are interested in ARC reading and reviewing. But because I write so slow, there aren't very many opportunities for them to ARC read and review. So what I've been doing is I'm also giving them the option of, hey, I'm trying to get more reviews for this book that you guys have already read, and these people are also looking for reviews, and they're in the same kind of genre if you want to check them out. And I got an overwhelming response that they really liked that, and I've done that a few times. I also have gotten some pretty good responses from doing snippets and previews of whatever book that I'm working on. So those have been things that people like. Deleted scenes, giveaways. People seem to like giveaways, and I have a couple people on my newsletter, but not a huge amount, that enjoy when I do author events. Like I did a live stream release day launch on YouTube. I've done a couple of author takeovers, but I haven't really seen that many people go to the author takeovers. I'm guessing it's probably because it's on Facebook, and I don't think a lot of people in my newsletter are on Facebook. I've had better luck with YouTube live streams and stuff that isn't on that platform. But your mileage is going to vary. Everything's going to be a little bit different. Main thing that I noticed is people really like to know what's going on in your life. I usually seem to connect with people more when I talk about that, and they really want to know what you're working on, for the most part. They want to know, like, oh, what story are you working on? Can I see some of it? Those are the main things that have really attracted and kept people on my newsletter. But that's all I've got for you today. If you like this video, make sure to click that like button and subscribe to the channel down below. And let me know, what are some things that you do for your newsletter? And what platform did you pick? I'm always interested to hear more about those. All right, thanks. Bye.